So to start off, would you say and spell your full name?
Frederick Joseph Perlak, Frederick Jperlak. I didn't tell the capitals in there. It's okay.
And I'm Marion Rita Perlak, MarionRitaPerlak.
And you go by Marita. When did that change occur?
Well, when I was born, I still wasn't out of the hospital. My aunt came to visit my mother, who's Marion, and she said, well, my grandmother also was Marion. She said, who are we going to call? What are we going to call her? Big Marion's, Little Marion's Marion? And they said, how about we try Marita, putting the names together? And that's how I got called Marita. And I didn't know until kindergarten that my legal name was Marion.
And Fred, where are the Perlaks from?
I grew up in Western Massachusetts. My grandparents on my mother's side and on my father's side emigrated to the United States in the 1890s from Poland. My mother's family came from bordering on Ukraine near Krakow, and my father's family from southern Poland bordering on Czechoslovakia.
And do you know what brought them to the U.S.?
All sorts of problems, famine, wars. And my grandmother's side, she had said that she had told my father that one of his uncles had gone off to war, and then after the war ended, 3 years later, he came home. When they said the war's over, they just said, see ya, didn't transport you home, didn't do any of that stuff. So it took him 3 years to get back home. And her father said to her, my grandmother, you don't have to have children who go off to war like that. You're going to America. And that's when she went. So.
And where are your people from?
So my maiden name was Smith, and both my parents, their families all came from Ireland. In 1848, after the famine. And we have a big Irish family in New York. They came to New York, first Boston and then New York. And yeah.
Did you grow up then?
I grew up in New York. I was born in Brooklyn. And I know, who knew that it would be so fashionable. And
Was it fashionable at the time?
No, Brooklyn was Brooklyn. And we moved from Brooklyn to Long Island. And then from Long Island, my dad got transferred to California. So I went to high school in California.
Transferred?
From in his business. He got a promotion and was transferred to the headquarters in L.A. So I went to high school in L.A., and then we came back to New York, and I went to college in Connecticut where I met Fred.
Right.
And what would you describe your childhood like growing up in Brooklyn?
It was great. We had a lot of family. I mean, we got together all the time with family. I'm one of 8 children, and I think the smallest family among my parents' siblings was 5 children. So, we'd get together. It would be, 30 cousins and the aunts and uncles in another room, and we'd have a great time.
Where are you in the birth order?
I'm the oldest in my family.
Oh.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up in Boston?
Well, we grew up in Western Massachusetts, which is the other half of Massachusetts. Boston is most of where people are. Western Massachusetts is pretty rural. It's north of Hartford, right along the Connecticut River. Connecticut River forms the boundary between Vermont and New Hampshire, cuts through Massachusetts. Hartford then goes out to Long Island Sound. So in Springfield, we grew up east of Springfield in Ludlow. We had family around. It was a lot of fun. Did all the things kids do, played sports as a kid. we had a very ethnic neighborhood, very Polish. But we grew up in a town that had a section Portuguese people, French Canadians, Polish. We had a baker who came on Wednesdays. We had a eggman who came on Fridays. We had a Polish baker who came on Saturdays. A milkman who came 2-3 times a week. I mean, that was real suburbia. And everybody knew just about everybody else. So it was pretty easy.
And as a kid, you were going to school. Were you a good student?
Most of the time. I did okay.
You begged to go to school.
I did beg to go to school
And you
because
started a year early.
my brother was 18 months older than me. And there were a couple of other boys in the neighborhood who were the same age as my brother. They went off to kindergarten. I was all by myself, so I cried to go to school. I was one of 60 in kindergarten, and there were kids in the class a year, 2 years older than me. So when I was in high school, I was a senior, and there were kids on the football team who were sophomores who were older than I was. But
Was it
that's
tough?
okay. No. I mean, driving, took longer for me to drive compared to my peers, so because I wasn't eligible to get a license. But that was okay. It was not that bad.
And were you a good student?
Yes. Yeah. National Honor Society and California State Scholarship. And, yeah.
What did you imagine you would grow up to be?
I originally thought maybe I would go to medical school. And then I realized chemistry, science is really not my gift. I was good enough at it, but I didn't enjoy it enough. And so...
What did you enjoy?
Language, reading, writing, those kinds of things. And I was good at that. But I got a degree in biology. And then I ended up, after college, I worked for a pharmaceutical advertising guy. And so I had the knowledge of the physiology and anatomy that he was using, but I had the good writing skills. So it was a good
Good blend.
fit. Yeah. And then from there, we got married, and he was in grad school at University of Massachusetts. And it was really tough finding jobs, especially in rural Mass. And so I got a job at the library at UMass as a clerk. And then from there, I ended up in administration in the provost's office as an administrative assistant. So
you grew up in an ethnic neighborhood. Did your parents take you to church?
Oh, yeah. I went to a parochial school that taught Polish as one of the subjects. And we had kids in my class who could hardly speak English but could speak Polish. So communicating with them was always interesting. And I never did well in Polish, but I retained a few things. And my grandmother, until I was about 4 years old, she lived in the same house with us.
Oh.
And she didn't speak much English until I was 5, actually.
And I think the phrases that you learned.
The phrases I still remember were "cicho bądź," which means "be quiet." "Idź do góry spać," go upstairs to bed. "Idź do piwnicy," which means goes to the basement. And another one, when my grandmother was cooking, she'd say "Co to tu proszę," which means "who invited you?"
They had a
And
great
I'd remember
relationship.
all those phrases, and I could communicate with my grandmother. But, and my parents could speak Polish. My mother much better than my father. My father could understand it, but he didn't necessarily speak it. But it was interesting. It was we always had very ethnic foods and had a lot of Polish customs that we followed. on Easter and Christmas and other times. So
And
that was good.
I learned to make pierogies from his mother, and I've taught my girls how to make them, and Dan too, our son, and they're teaching their kids now. So it's kind of neat.
That is neat to pass down the
Yeah.
foods.
And I wasn't Polish.
Yeah. Did your parents take you to church?
Yes, very much. My family and yours too. We had both Catholic, and there were priests in his. He had two uncles as a priest. I had one uncle as a priest. Was a priest.
Yeah.
And we were very active in our parishes. And when we moved, like from New York to Los Angeles, that was the place where we connected with community there, and it was very beneficial.
How so?
We got to know other people, felt like we belonged in a place where the culture from New York to LA was really different. For the weather, for one thing. And we left New York, it was October, and I had plaid wool skirt on, and I get there and everybody's in shorts and they're going to school in shorts. I was like, whoa, we don't do that in New York, you know. And I got ridiculed for my accent, which I learned how to drop.
Yeah, you don't have an accent at all now.
No, but
If you did have an accent, what would it sound like?
kind of New Yorky, you know, talking about things.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
When she gets together with her
My
with her
siblings.
siblings, they fall
start-
into it.
Yeah, we get little fast talking, and you know, just, oh, did you see that? Oh, yeah, you know, and the
Sounds like
boardwalk,
Jersey Shore.
the
I mean,
boardwalk in Jersey, yeah.
So how did you meet Fred?
we met in
At college.
college in introductory biology class.
Yeah.
We were both biology majors, pre-med kind of thing, and there was a lab to dissect a dogfish shark.
Squalosacanthes.
Yeah, whatever. And Marita,
We met over the spiral valve.
spiral valve, and there was obvious these two girls were having real trouble. So I went over and was helping Marita. And we got to know each other there. And we had a lot of classes together. But just was how we met.
What did you notice about Fred?
Well, I used to sit behind him in class, and his back was really good looking. I mean, he was fit.
It was a good thing it was my back. But, you know, it was different.
But that was superficial. But
By
you're also,
the time I got
you were
to-
very kind.
By the time I got to college, I was a much better student. In fact, I was highly motivated. Unlike Marita, she was a good student, but not motivated.
Yeah.
So
And what was your first date like?
Oh, I don't know. We got to be friends first, talking in the library and a few other things. First date was
There was
an event in a university
at
event.
the Oak Room. Yeah.
Yeah, I was taking a course. We went to Fairfield University, which is a Jesuit school. One of the requirements is that you take 2 semesters of religious studies. And so the semester I was taking was ancient Jewish literature in the Near East taught by a rabbi. It qualified, and it was interesting. There were only 5 of us in the class, so it was great. And this rabbi who taught the class was quite a scholar, so it was really great. But he had recommended going to this, was it a music?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. It was Jewish music, or
It was a violin guy.
yeah, I can't remember. I just remember going with you.
It was really good.
You took me on a date for your homework.
Yeah, I did. Well, it was something to do. I mean, it was different.
Took me about 45 years now to realize that.
There was no admission. It was free.
So how long were you dating before you knew this is going to be serious?
So we started dating, I would say junior year, and
Junior year.
by the end of senior year, we kind of knew. But you'd already committed to graduate school at UMass, and that was going to be at least 5 years.
Yeah.
So we weren't ready to, take that step. So I stayed in New York and worked there while you were at grad school, and we'd visit each other back and forth.
Yeah, I don't think we ever said, oh, this is the girl I'm going to stay with the rest of my life. We just figured, oh, this is pretty good. And we just moved from there.
Do you remember meeting all of her siblings for the first time?
Kind of, yeah. I went to visit her family in New York.
Well, two of them went to Fairfield.
Two of
also.
them went to Fairfield. And we got along just fine. No problems there.
My parents remembered meeting you.
That's right, yeah.
He was coming from lacrosse practice, and your dorm was right next door to my dorm, and they were coming from the parking lot to my dorm, and you ran by them and ran in the room and ran into the stairwell. And my mother said to my dad, I think that's Marita's Fred. And with that, the door popped back open, and he leaned out and he goes, Mr. and Mrs. Smith? And they go, yeah. He goes, oh, I'm Fred Perlak. So, because he knew that they were coming to see me.
I also knew that the people I was with were like one level above vegetables. So if I had said something when they were there, they had started hooting and hollering. And I wanted to avoid that kind of scene. So I said, well, let's get in the building. I'll come back out. So they got in and we came out. And,
well, my dad was ready to give his blessing right then.
Oh, really?
Oh, he was so impressed with what he did.
What did he like about him?
The fact that he didn't just brush them off. Like my mom knew that who you were, and I think he realized you suspected that they knew, and you came back and you took that initiative.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's a good move. That's
very
pretty suave.
respectful and
well,
appreciative.
And plus I got rid of those guys I was with, which was good. That was a good thing.
And do you remember introducing your parents to Marita?
I think they came up for a lacrosse game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and they loved Marita. My mother had very little faith in what I would do. So she was like, she's such a nice girl. How did you do that? And I'm like, Mom. And so it's okay.
Yeah, she was funny. Even the week before we got married, or the month before, you and she had a terrible falling out over clothing. And so she said, do you see how awful he is? You still have time. You don't have to marry him.
My mother thought that I should wear, she would go shopping for stuff from my father, and then, Fred would like this. So she'd pick out a suit coat that had red, white, and blue checks that were 1 inch. And she showed it to me, and she said, well, what do you think? I said, I don't think an Iowa car salesman would wear that. And she said, well, your brother will like it. And he came in and he loved it. And I said, all yours. And my mother, she also said, when I went off to college, she said, well, you need to wear nice clothes to class. No, Mom, nobody does that. Well, in graduate school, you're going for an advanced degree. And I said, no, nobody wears T-shirts, blue jeans. And then she said, well, in your postdoc, certainly you're almost a member of the faculty. No. And then she said, well, at your job, you certainly have to wear a suit and tie. I said, no, polo shirts, Dockers, things like that. She goes, you must not have a very good job.
Oh.
I said, it's fine, Mom. Don't worry about it.
But that's the world she was coming from.
Yeah.
Okay, so last question. Your grandparents now, What is it like to be a grandparent?
Oh, it's great.
Tiring. I know why old people don't have kids. I mean, they just wear you out, and they what they want to do and when they want to do it is different from your schedule. But it's okay. You just learn to go along with it and try to help them work through stuff. But decorating cookies is a big thing we do, and at Christmas and Easter, and eggs and activities like that, and they just love doing it.
Well, we go every year to Cape Cod. We rent a house, and we have, my son brings his kids up. He and his wife come up with their kids, and the two that live here in St. Louis come, and we're all there together, the whole family. And it's a lot of fun.
One thing I do that I get a kick out of is in the nightstand next to my bed in our bedroom, I always put 2 little containers of Pez, and I put them in there. And every time they come, they run in and look, and they say, "Where did these come from?" I said, "I don't know. The Pez fairy has been." And so they do it every time. We've gotten to the point where we buy Pez in bulk from Amazon.
And their parents just love us for it, you know.
But they don't always remember right away. And then eventually one of them says, "Did you check yet?" Oh, and they'll run in and they'll get one.
Well, Fred and Marita, thank you so much for this.
You're welcome.
And it's always a pleasure to talk with you.
This was great. You guys have so much vibrancy in between you. It's great. The way you tell stories is unique. Sometimes when 2 people are talking, they interrupt and correct, but yours was like a very fun.
Well, that's
playful...
if you got her family there. That's what you'd be like. You sit at a table with them, and they'll be talking about, "Oh, remember Grandpa's dog? Yeah, Mickey. No, his name wasn't Mickey. It was Billy." And they argue about the name of their grandfather's dog.
He wasn't a miniature fox terrier. He was a Boston terrier.
Boston, yeah. They'll argue about that, and I'm like, who cares?